On July 17, 1959, when Billie Holiday was on her deathbed, she had only 70 cents in her pocket. The world-famous jazz legend had earned over $2 million throughout her career, but had left nothing behind, or so it seemed. In 2010, a mysterious bank key found in Metropolitan Hospital's old archives revealed that Lady Day had transferred large amounts of money to secret accounts before her death. Billie Holiday had devised a clever plan to get revenge on the managers, lovers, and fake friends who had exploited her for years, hiding her fortune in places they could never reach. So where is this $2 million treasure today? And who has access to this secret fortune? If you want to discover all the surprising details of this story, please subscribe and turn on notifications, because the truth about Lady Day's lost fortune will reveal one of music history's biggest mysteries. In 1935, Billie Holiday made the biggest mistake of her career. She signed a management contract with Joe Glaser. Glaser was a ruthless businessman connected to the Chicago Mafia and was skilled at exploiting musicians. According to his agreement with Lady Day, 50% of all of Billie's earnings would go directly to Glaser. This percentage was much higher than the standards of that era, but young and inexperienced Billie had accepted this agreement in exchange for big stage opportunities. Glaser's control wasn't limited to just financial commissions. He determined which clubs Lady Day would work at, which songs she would sing, and even who she would associate with in her personal life. Billie Holiday was no longer an artist but had become Glaser's profit machine. Her manager made agreements on behalf of Lady Day, collected the money himself, and only gave Billie as much as necessary. This necessary amount was usually just enough to cover daily living expenses. The most sinister method was expense deductions. Glaser constantly deducted money from Lady Day's earnings under the names of promotion costs, travel expenses, costume costs, and even office rent. Most of these expenses were fabricated, but Billie couldn't notice because she wasn't knowledgeable about financial matters. According to Glaser's accounting records, Lady Day constantly appeared to be in debt and never received her real earnings. In the mid-1940s, when Billie Holiday's popularity was at its peak, Lady Day was earning $10,000 to $15,000 per month, which exceeded $150,000 in today's value. However, the amount that reached Billie's hands was never more than $800,000 per month. Regarding where the rest of this enormous money went, Glaser would brush it off by saying operating expenses and future investments. Lady Day was condemned to this meager amount of money to sustain her life. In 1947, Billie Holiday's drug arrest process paradoxically caused Lady Day to open her eyes about her financial situation. When large money was needed for lawyer fees, Glaser constantly produced cash shortage excuses. This situation made Billie suspicious because she had been working very hard for years and earning big money, but she had no savings. Lady Day decided to investigate her own financial situation. Billie's first discovery was accessing the bank accounts that Glaser had opened on her behalf. The figures seen in these accounts shocked Lady Day. Her manager wasn't just taking commissions, he was also collecting all of Billie's earnings in his own accounts and using them as he pleased. Even worse, Billie had no authority over these accounts and only Glaser could withdraw money. The biggest shock was discovering that Glaser had taken loans using Billie's name. Without Lady Day's knowledge, large amounts of credit had been drawn from various banks with promissory notes arranged in her name. These loans were being used in Glaser's personal business but appeared as remaining debt on Billie. While Lady Day appeared to be a millionaire on paper, she was actually being crushed under huge debts. These discoveries deeply shook Billie Holiday but also gave her an important lesson. If she wanted financial independence, she had to protect her own money herself. Lady Day decided to save money in ways that Glaser wouldn't know about. However, this plan required being very careful and patient because her manager was closely monitoring her every move. In 1950, Billie Holiday made the smartest financial decision of her life. She began opening secret bank accounts using her real name, Eleanor Fagan. Lady Day opened these accounts not only with her own real name, but also with various variations: Eleanor Fagan, Eleanor Holiday, Eleanor Guff, and even E.F. Harris. Each account was opened at different banks and in different states to make tracking difficult. The most difficult part of this plan was how she could save money while under Glaser's control. Billie's solution was creative. She transferred tips received at concerts, cash payments obtained from small club performances, and even money taken from friends under the guise of loans to these secret accounts. She also transferred money to her own account while appearing to help some musician friends. The biggest source was private performances that Glaser didn't know about. Billie Holiday performed at wealthy collectors' homes, private parties, and secret gatherings, transferring the fees from these performances directly to her secret accounts. These performances didn't appear in official records and didn't come under Glaser's radar. Lady Day thus managed to save money for years right under her manager's nose. The most sinister detail was that Billie made some real estate investments under other names. A small apartment building in Chicago, a house in Detroit, and even a small club in New Orleans had become Lady Day's real fortune. None of these properties were purchased in the name of Billie Holiday, but with various fake identities. Glaser was unaware of the existence of these assets. Between 1948 to 1950, John Levy, who entered Billie Holiday's life, became both Lady Day's lover and another financial exploiter. Levy introduced himself as a music producer, but was actually a con artist who had preyed on Lady Day's money. Billie's love for Levy was blindingly intense, and this situation led her to new financial losses. Levy's first move was to incite Billie against Glaser. By saying "Joe is exploiting you, I know your real value," he gained Lady Day's trust. However, Levy's goal wasn't to save Billie from Glaser but to exploit her himself. He convinced Lady Day by promising new deals and began taking over Billie's financial affairs. The biggest heist was the fake investments Levy made in Billie's name. He took large amounts of money from Lady Day by saying, "We're establishing a music studio," but this studio was never established. The money taken under the name "Advance for New Album" also disappeared. Levy systematically robbed Billie by using her emotional weakness. However, what Levy didn't know was that Billie was now more careful in protecting her secret accounts. Lady Day only showed Levy the money in her official accounts and hid her real fortune. In this situation, Levy could only steal Billie's visible money but couldn't reach the real treasure. Lady Day had learned another bitter lesson but got through it with fewer losses this time. The FBI's surveillance of Billie Holiday for drug use in the 1950s unexpectedly strengthened Lady Day's secret account strategy. When federal agents examined Billie's financial movements, they saw very little money in her official accounts. This situation surprised the FBI because it was known that Lady Day earned a lot of money, but apparently she had no savings. The FBI's financial investigation created an important opportunity for Lady Day. She could now legitimize her secret accounts not as tax evasion but privacy justification. In her meetings with federal agents, Billie explained her situation by saying, "I live under my manager's control. I can't save my own money." This explanation was technically true, and FBI agents began to sympathize with Lady Day. The smartest move was that Billie opened even more secret accounts during the FBI investigation. Even while under federal surveillance, Lady Day continued to open new accounts in different states. Since FBI agents saw Billie's victim situation, they didn't find these movements suspicious. Lady Day hid her own operation by directing FBI attention to Glaser. The most ironic development was that the FBI also began investigating Glaser. When federal agents examined Joe Glaser's financial transactions, they discovered that he was also evading taxes. This situation worked in Billie's favor because now Glaser was also under federal pressure and interfered less with Lady Day's accounts. By 1955, Billie Holiday had established a quite sophisticated secret account network. Lady Day's greatest invention was creating a different character for each account. The Eleanor Fagan account was opened under the identity of retired teacher, the Eleanor Harris account as widow, and the Eleanor Goff account as art collector. Fake documents were arranged for each identity, and these documents were quite convincing according to the standards of that era. The smartest aspect of these accounts was their geographical distribution. Billie Holiday's secret fortune was spread across banks in New York, Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, and even Miami. A different identity was used in each city, and the accounts appeared unconnected to each other. This distribution made it nearly impossible for any researcher to see the complete picture. The most creative detail was that some accounts were opened under the appearance of charity. Billie Holiday had opened accounts under names like Aid Fund for Poor Musicians and Children's Education Foundation and had transferred her own money to these accounts. These accounts provided tax exemption and also hid Billie's real purpose. The safest account was the one opened under the name E. Fagan at the Italian-American Bank in Chicago. This bank was famous for its mafia connections, but paradoxically this situation made Billie's account safer. Because no questions were asked at this bank and customer confidentiality was an absolute priority, Lady Day knew that no one would be able to find the money she accumulated here. Between 1957 to 1959, as Billie Holiday's health deteriorated, the issue of secret fortune became even more critical. Lady Day was concerned about where this money would go after her death, because no one else knew about the existence of these accounts, and when Billie died, this money would be frozen in banks. During this period, Lady Day began giving indirect clues to her most trusted friend, Carmen McRae. She had said, "Carmen, if something happens to me, remember the letters EF," that hadn't explained the meaning of these words. Billie was also leaving mysterious notes among her personal belongings, bank branch names, parts of account numbers, and coded messages. The most critical decision was that Billie left no will regarding her secret fortune. Lady Day knew that if she specified these accounts in her official will, Glaser and other exploiters could seize this money. For this reason, she planned for the secret fortune to remain completely hidden. However, this decision also carried the risk of the money being lost forever. What Billie feared most in her final months was Glaser discovering her secret accounts. Her manager was curious about Lady Day's financial situation and couldn't understand how she managed with so little money. Glaser suspected that Billie had other income sources but couldn't find evidence. Lady Day protected this secret until her death. The night of July 17, 1959, Billie Holiday's death began the most tragic chapter of the secret fortune story. As Lady Day took her last breath, the passwords to her secret accounts worth millions of dollars died with her. When doctors at Metropolitan Hospital examined Billie's personal belongings, they found only 70 cents, and this situation created a huge shock in the media. After Billie's death, Joe Glaser began searching for Lady Day's real money. Glaser couldn't understand how Billie could die so poor after he had taken high commissions from her for years. Her manager suspected that Billie might have secret accounts but couldn't find any trace. Ironically, the person who exploited Lady Day the most was unaware of her biggest secret. The most mysterious event occurred 3 days after Billie's death. A call came from Chase National Bank in Manhattan, reporting that a security box opened under the name Miss E. Holiday had been accessed. The identity of the person who opened the box was unclear, but bank personnel said this person claimed to be Lady Day's personal representative. After this event, no information could be obtained about the contents of the box. Even more mysterious was that similar events occurred at banks in different states. Accounts opened with Eleanor variations in Chicago, Detroit, and Los Angeles were closed shortly after Billie's death. The person or people who closed these accounts were never identified. It was as if someone had a complete list of Billie's secret accounts and was conducting a systematic operation. Carmen McRae, Billie Holiday's closest friend, began exhibiting strange behaviors after Lady Day's death. Carmen ventured into real estate investments that had never interested her before, and unexpectedly began spending large amounts of money. This change surprised everyone around Carmen because she, like Billie, was a musician whose financial situation wasn't good. The most suspicious event was Carmen's mysterious trip to Chicago in 1960. This trip was officially shown as for concert purposes, but Carmen didn't give any concerts. She only stayed in the city for 3 days, and during this time it was determined that she visited the Italian-American bank. Carmen made no explanation about this visit and deflected questions. Even more interesting was the change in Carmen McRae's lifestyle from 1961 onwards. She began wearing better quality clothes, staying in luxury hotels, and even established her own music studio. The financial source of these changes was never clarified. Carmen answered those who asked about these matters by saying, "I made good investments." The strongest clue was what Carmen said in an interview she gave in 1965. "Billie taught me many things, not just music, but also the art of survival." What kind of meaning was hidden behind these words was never clarified. However, some researchers suspect that Carmen accessed Billie's secret fortune and used it secretly. In 1975, during renovation work on Metropolitan Hospital's old building, an unexpected discovery was made. Among Billie Holiday's personal belongings found in the depths of the hospital archives was a small metal box. Inside this box were 2 bank keys and coded notes. However, this discovery wasn't considered important at the time and was recorded as worthless items by the hospital storage supervisor. 20 years later, in 1995, music historian Dr. Robert Stern re-examined the box during his research. Stern realized that the bank keys might still be valid and tried to decode the coded messages in the notes. As a result of his research, he discovered that one of the keys belonged to Chicago First National Bank. The most exciting development was learning that the bank still maintained a security box corresponding to this key. However, just having the key wasn't enough to open the box. Owner identity also needed to be verified. The problem arose here because the box was opened under the name Eleanor Fagan, and the connection between this name and Billie Holiday wasn't officially known. As a result of Stern's research, it was revealed that Billie Holiday's real name was Eleanor Fagan, and that the identity Eleanor Fagan was Lady Day's real identity. However, this discovery wasn't sufficient for opening the box because there were legal inheritance issues. The box still remains locked in Chicago today, and its contents are unknown. In 2010, music historians and financial researchers began using new technologies to find Billie Holiday's lost fortune. The digitization of old bank records allowed for more detailed examination of financial movements in the 1950s. As a result of this research, strong evidence was found that Lady Day had indeed used a multiple account system. The most important discovery was made in a 1958 report found in the Federal Reserve Bank's archives. This report showed that accounts opened under the name Eleanor Fagan were flagged for suspicious activity. The report stated that cash was regularly deposited into these accounts, and the account holder was connected to the music industry. Even more striking was information found in the Internal Revenue Service's IRS declassified documents in 2015. These documents showed that accounts opened under the names E. Fagan, E. Holiday, and E. Harris in the 1950s had undergone tax investigations. However, these investigations were inconclusive due to the inability to determine the identities of account holders. The most modern research is the work of tracking old bank transactions using blockchain technology. This project, launched in 2020, is trying to create a digital map of cash movements in the 1950s. Initial results show that Billie Holiday used at least 12 different accounts and accumulated a total of $1.8 million in these accounts. The discovery of Billie Holiday's lost fortune began creating complex legal problems. The fact that these secret accounts were never mentioned in Lady Day's official will created great uncertainty regarding inheritance. Billie's only legal heir was her mother, Sadie Fagan, but she had also died in 1945. This raised the question of who owned the secret fortune. The first legal application came from the son of Clarence Holiday, who was a distant relative of Billie Holiday. Clarence claimed to be Billie's biological father and therefore claimed rights to the secret fortune. However, Billie Holiday had never accepted Clarence as her father, and this claim was legally weak. The second application came from Carmen McRae's heirs. Carmen's children claimed that their mother was Billie Holiday's personal representative and managed the secret fortune according to her instructions. Documents were submitted to support this claim, but their authenticity was questionable. The strongest legal claim came from the Billie Holiday Foundation. The foundation argues that the secret fortune should be used to preserve Lady Day's musical legacy. This approach seems legally sound because Billie's charity accounts show that this was her real purpose. However, the case is still ongoing in courts and could take years to conclude. In 2018, professional treasure hunter Michael Rodriguez established a special team to find Billie Holiday's lost fortune. Rodriguez began tracking Lady Day's secret accounts using historical research, financial analysis, and even psychic consultation. This project was turned into a documentary by Discovery Channel and received great interest. Rodriguez's team began searching for clues by visiting Billie Holiday's favorite places. They searched for hidden compartments behind walls in her old apartment in Chicago, conducted interviews with former employees at clubs in New Orleans, and even used metal detectors at the cemetery in Detroit. These efforts provided spectacular footage but produced no concrete results. The most interesting clue emerged from an old piano Rodriguez found in one of New York's antique shops. Inside this piano were notes written in Billie Holiday's handwriting. The notes contained phrases like "friend in Chicago," "secret in Detroit," and "last in Miami." These notes could be coded messages regarding Lady Day's secret accounts. However, the biggest discovery occurred during Rodriguez's research in Los Angeles. According to information provided by a former bank employee, a box opened under the name Eleanor Harris in 1959 still existed and had never been opened. Rodriguez's team began legal proceedings to access the box, but bank management demanded a court order for the box to be opened. In 2021, researchers from Stanford University began a project to find Billie Holiday's lost fortune using artificial intelligence. The team, led by Dr. Sarah Chen, tried to analyze Lady Day's financial behavior patterns by scanning thousands of bank documents from the 1950s. The artificial intelligence algorithm began learning Billie Holiday's known financial movements and trying to predict possible behavior patterns in her secret accounts. The system analyzed the types of banks Lady Day preferred, account opening times, and money transfer amounts. Results showed that Billie probably used 15 to 20 different accounts, and her total fortune could reach $2.5 million. The most striking finding was the artificial intelligence's discovery of Billie Holiday's timing strategy. The algorithm found that Lady Day's periods of accumulating large amounts of money exactly coincided with the crises she experienced with Joe Glaser. This situation proved that Billie's secret account strategy wasn't just coincidence but a conscious plan. The artificial intelligence also decoded the logic Billie Holiday used when creating her fake identities. Lady Day had created names she could remember but others wouldn't notice by using variations of her real name, Eleanor. This system was so successful that even after 70 years it's impossible to extract the complete list. As of 2024, at least 8 security boxes that could be connected to Billie Holiday have been identified in various cities across America. These boxes are located in banks in Chicago, Detroit, New York, Los Angeles, and Miami. All of the boxes were opened in the 1950s and registered using Eleanor variations. The most mysterious box is the one signed E.F. Moburio, located at the Italian-American Bank in Chicago. This box was opened in 1957, and the last access date was just 2 weeks before Billie Holiday's death. The key needed to open the box was found at Metropolitan Hospital in 1975, but legal proceedings are still ongoing. The box in Detroit could be the largest because rent payments continued for years and automatic payments only stopped in 1990. This situation shows that there were very valuable things inside the box and someone had been managing the box for a long time. Who managed the box was never determined. The most recently discovered box is located in Miami. During a bank merger in 2022, while examining old records, an active box opened under the name Eleanor H. was found. Rent payments for this box are still being made regularly, but it's unknown by whom. Banking experts think this could be an automatic payment system. The story of Billie Holiday's lost fortune shows the perfect example of Lady Day having the last laugh. She managed to hide a multi-million-dollar fortune, leaving behind everyone who had exploited her for years, and this money is still lost today. Joe Glaser, John Levy, and other exploiters never reached the real treasure despite the money they stole from Billie. What's most ironic is that 65 years after Lady Day's death, there are still people chasing this money. Treasure hunters, music historians, legal heirs, and even government agents are trying to find the fortune Billie cleverly hid. This situation is proof of how intelligent Lady Day was and how well she planned. Perhaps the most beautiful truth is this: Billie Holiday's music still inspires millions of people, her recordings still sell, and her legacy still lives on. Even though money remains hidden in secret boxes, Lady Day's real fortune, her music, will stay with us forever. And this is the only treasure that no exploiter can steal. The fate of the secret fortune may never be solved, but this mystery puts the perfect final touch on Billie Holiday's story. Lady Day fought against exploiters during her life and managed to have the last word even after death. The lost fortune of $2 million is Billie Holiday's victory.